Welcome everyone to the October 24th Board of Assessors meeting. We have two members present and we're currently waiting for our chairman, but we're going to start right now. Last week's minutes, there are a few carryovers specifically about the certification that are to follow and a few things under executive session. Number two, update on fiscal year 23 preliminary certification. We did get preliminary certification late last week, and I sent you an email about that. The value, there's going to be a notice on the website. We actually legally have to put a notice. I'm going to ask Teresa, her and I can work on it today with a link to the assessments. It's going to be up at the library. We have the books available in our office, and anybody can call and get that information if they want it. There's Gary. We have to provide a public disclosure period. Basically, it's a 2-week period. We decided over 1 week we were going to go with 2. That's going to go from October today until November 7th. And actually last week, Tammy and I worked on the 953 notices that went out to everyone outside. We talked about this at our last meeting, everyone outside of the basically viewing area. And those went out Thursday afternoon. So we expect phone calls to be coming in for questions on those. They have all the letters that went out basically stated the same thing, that they have the same amount of time to call us. I mean, I want to make it clear that anybody can call us at any time. This is just the public disclosure period is specifically to meet the guidelines for the certification that we did. So this is basically a state guideline that we have to prove that we did allow either a 1-week period or a 2-week period for the viewing of the assessments once we have a preliminary proposed value. And that's exactly, I will bring I just got the binders ready with the old to new reports listing by owner name and location, and we'll actually someone from the library came in on Friday and asked if I had it ready, and I just was able to get it ready when I left. So I'm going to bring that up there today. So it will be available at the library today is, going forward. And again, we'll keep until the commitment book is actually printed, which is done after the assessment period, the preliminary period has gone by, and once we have our tax rate set, anybody can call at any time. We won't have it on the actual mapping site yet until the values are finalized. And even then, because we discussed this at our last meeting, we're going to go through a transition to be able to do a conversion on the new version, which I just sent the contract that you signed a few weeks ago to our mapping company. And I imagine once they get it, we'll set up a time for them to come in or do it online over the internet to set up our link so we can upload all of the, not just the valuations, but the technical data for each property to the mapping GIS website.
So Michael, on your desk in the office, you have the old to new, and that'll be there for months. Yeah,
right now, I mean, if someone wants a copy of their record card, I can print it. I mean, for months we've been telling, the public we're under preliminary, we're not even in preliminary, so we're under reval. Once we get to preliminary and we get our go ahead to release the values and the data, we've been providing the old record card. If someone wants a copy of their new record card now, we can print it, send it, email it as a PDF.
And then on your countertop, you always have the valuations of everybody's.
We have, right.
On the right-hand side.
The big commitment book. Yeah, now we have 2 little binders that show, the value, where the valuations are from last year.
So,
and the difference.
So just to say it again, so all of the values are always available online and also on your office and on the desk there on the counter.
Always.
But online right now in the old GIS, the values will be wrong for the new values.
Right. And there is something new that typically when we get to this point in a certification year, the DOR used to make us put a notice in the paper. That is no longer a requirement, but there has to be a notice on the on our town website. And I actually have to, found out or actually this morning when I looked at my emails, that we're required to actually take a photo of what it looks like as a PDF, and that has to go in when we submit for our final valuations, which probably will be November 8th or November 9th, once that viewing period is over with. I just want to make it clear that, even though we're giving a date, of November 7th, it doesn't mean that you can never inquire about your value after that. You can always inquire about your value. This is just to make sure that we satisfy the state's requirements so we can move forward with getting our new growth certified. And then once the new growth is certified, moving forward with the tax classification hearing and creeping towards getting that tax bill out. And I did talk to Mike last week, he's not here today, about starting to meet with the department head so we can start hashing out where we're going with the financial side, the actual tax rate. That has to we have to dive into that as soon as we can. So we can have that all ready to go once the public disclosure period is over with. And again, you also have one community after another coming in that's semi-annual. So we want to make sure that everything's ready to go. We're not being held up by anything on our ends. And I think we're in a good place right now. This was the big one, getting the preliminary in there and finished, because basically that was a review of what was done in our office starting from January all the way through to basically abide by the certification standards, which we did. So that really covers 2 and 3. Number 4, I'm already working on the new growth. Joe Barberi, who reviewed our valuations, our proposed valuations and everything that went into them, he will also be reviewing our new growth, and we should be able to
Could you just
get that through. New growth is the end result of looking at the new construction, both on the real estate side and also picking up any new businesses or business items on personal property. And it's also utility growth as well that they report to us. That is everything that was done with building permits last year as of January 1st of this year. And I don't have that number yet. I should have that number ready to go by hopefully the end of the week or beginning of next week. And the recap, again, we will be all doing our part, because we all do work on this, more so other departments than the Board of Assessors. Once our values are in, that's pretty much our part. But what we also do is we gather all the information, and I work with Mike to make sure we have everything in place, the local receipts, the local aid, the articles from the town meeting, and our valuations are going to make up what the tax rate's going to be. And I don't want to really get into that too much right now, because in all honesty, we have not, it's been focused on evaluations. This week would be the first week that we really start looking at where the tax rate's going to be, and go from there. I'm going to be attending the Berkshire County Assessors Association fall meeting. I did send that in. I didn't put anybody else's name down. That's Thursday. Tammy you'll be here on Thursday. Yeah, so any phone calls that come through, I'll get back to people on Friday. I did continue into number 6, update on tax exemption pilot program, because I think you had a meeting, Tom.
You're still mute.
Yes, we had a meeting last Thursday, and we'll be reporting on that meeting this coming Thursday to the Board of Selectmen. But the committee is, of course, works in accordance with the Board of Selectmen. They appointed us, and the feeling at the committee that was expressed was that we continue and try to finish up our work this fiscal year. And we'll be reporting on the details at the Board of Selectmen meeting. Peter Strauss, who's attending, who I see is linked to this meeting, was elected to be co-chair with me for this coming year of the pilot committee. And rather than go into too many details right now, I'd rather defer on that. People can tune into our more detailed report to the Board of Selectmen and can ask questions there.
Okay.
Peter, is there anything you want to add while you're here?
No, you got it just fine. Thank you.
Okay,
You might,
thank you.
you know a bunch of people.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So do you want to go to question? So we will go to questions or comments from Zoom or live audience at this point. Anybody have any questions? No? Patrick?
I have a couple things. One, I was talking with I mentioned my sister says hi. I was talking with my brother and sister in the last week, and we feel because they're both second homeowners and own 2/3 of the house, that for the purpose of evaluation of any, whatever, not specific exemptions, but, for whether, regardless, we would like our house to be treated like a second home because it's 2/3 owned. We don't want to be considered for any programs that would benefit, just, my brother lives in Florida, my sister lives in California, and just the feeling is that it's because it's majority owned by second home owners that it should be treated that way.
So you mean to be able to be put on the personal property rules for furnishings and
Whatever it
furnitures?
means.
It wouldn't be until, because again, we can't add anything to the commitment. So it would be, we can make a note for that for next year.
Can people just opt in and out? I mean,
No, but again, because like with the way your ownership is listed on the deed, it's really hard to know if that is again, a second home or not. So if someone tells us, then I can make a note of it. That's totally different. It's not me guessing and maybe we should pick this one up. Not really sure who the trustees are and where they live and, it's.
yeah, I mean,
know.
that's the nuances of this whole debate. There is many gray areas and many things. I mean, there's a lot of times where people, a family house may be owned by the siblings or by the children, I mean. And because of that, but still, a parent, it might be living.
With my advocacy at a personal level, it would be a perceived conflict of interest for me to not accede to those wishes. But if you guys, I'm just telling you what our position is. I'm not an assessor, so you guys decide,
Yeah, I mean, it's almost,
Right.
it's a legal comment. It's a legal question because it is a gray area that I'm not comfortable
Totally.
making.
I'm not either. I mean,
Look, I've no hurt.
I make a note as I go
As I go
through the list, I make a note. Typically, it's a question mark, not really sure.
Yeah.
And we'll check all the sources, which really there aren't that many sources to check. Immediately go to the deed and, typically if there are several names listed, we run with the first address because it'll show 3 different addresses to send the correspondence to, typically the tax bill. And we'll use that first address. And if it's outside of Stockbridge, we typically will pick that property up as personal property. But we could be wrong, we never really have some of them are really obvious. Some of them aren't. And that, like yours, I wouldn't know 100% until you tell me.
Yeah, and I think it is an interesting point. I think we'll have to do a little bit more research just to see how we would handle this going forward.
Yeah, because when I've talked to other assessors about, especially out towards, the Cape and Boston, they find our area to be interesting because there's no rural delivery. So it's hard to actually use someone's, PO box or, even that isn't a true test of where they live. And with COVID, we've changed a lot of addresses back and forth because people opened up, even if they didn't buy a property here, they could have been renting a property here, opened up a PO box, have now gone back for safety reasons back to their original residence. Some of them are canceling the PO boxes, some of them aren't canceling the PO boxes, but I'm noticing more than ever, we're getting a lot of notices from the tax collector's office that we're going back and forth with a lot, and we have to stick with, where do you want your tax bill to be sent? But for us, we also we have so many second homeowners that's a catalyst for moving forward with a personal property bill. So I will say it's not an easy process, and I'm not sure we know exactly how to nail down every single one of them. We do our best. There are some that slip through, and we'll try to address it, in the future.
And then I just want to also point out that I received a number of calls in the last few days from folks just, commenting on the letters. And to the degree that they interact with these folks, just remember that the state law in Massachusetts is 100% evaluation, and these guys are just doing their job. And they're, so you can challenge it, you can do whatever you want, but I think that we just should point out that, like, folks who work at town hall and are on the assessors board are just following along with these evaluations. There's not any, there's a whole lot of, standard procedures around setting these valuations, and it's not like pick and choose.
Yeah, I mean, as Michael says, going through this, the state is looking over our shoulders with a fine tooth comb. And so there's not even any wiggle room.
I mean, just to summarize, I'm just saying, give these guys a break.
Thank you. We haven't had the phone calls yet, but they just went out. So, and again, I do enjoy getting people's feedback as long as it's, positive and not against what we did. Like you said, these are the review, and it's a 5-year review. So that's not, we worked on it this year, but there's a lot of things that the state has changed in the way they review. I will say they've actually streamlined it quite a bit in a 5-year period, but there's still, even though we've had one reviewer for the last 2 months going over things, there are still higher ups that actually will find, they may find something. And, luckily we got through this year without too many major concerns. When the proposed assessment period is over with and we submit for a final certification, which is basically just sending in a form that you guys sign off on, that we didn't make any changes until the abatement process is in place. Up until that point, it really, the preliminary is it. The state basically saying, we're happy with what you did. Doesn't mean they won't send recommendations after you, sign off on the LA-10 and we send it in. They could come back and say, simply maintain this, continue with this, possibly change this and focus on, I don't know that until preliminary period is over with.
So, Mike, can you just comment about this preliminary review period versus abatement and what the difference is?
Yes, because we have so many second homeowners and people that aren't in the viewing area or easily available to come in, we do not do sit down hearings with the public. There are some, I know when I worked with Adam, I worked for a huge reval one year, and it was a 4-week period of having taxpayers come in on a scheduled, hearing date and meet with the Board of Assessors to get their concerns out. We streamline that and say, you can call it anytime you want. Tell us what your concerns are and we'll look into it. But at the same time, we're not changing values until we're going to submit, unless there is some real grave mistake, and that can be addressed during the preliminary period.
So material correction, something's wrong within the property card might be adjusted.
Right. If you're really concerned that there's something off with that, then we'll look into it, adjust it, and that gets reported on the form that goes back to the state. They have no issues with that. They're basically, they've signed off on this, so it's now with us, and we have that option to do that. Typically over the years, we haven't had any big issues like that. Yes, these are some big jumps in value. That doesn't necessarily mean there's an issue. The issue was, look at we'll look at the sales from last year and show those to the residents and the people that are concerned. But typically, we don't do hearings. Being a semi-annual community where we're already this late in the year, and I want everyone to know it is expected that we can be a little bit late when we're in a certification. I'm thinking at this point, because we have to do the preliminary disclosure, now we're going into November, we still have the new growth to submit, we still have the tax classification to do. I will put this out there that I do feel tax bills will not be going out until December at this point.
What do you think the tax classification hearing? I mean,
I think-
one select board meeting, at least on the books right now in November.
Yep.
The 24th is obviously Thanksgiving.
Right.
So you think we'll be able to make the 10th?
No, because our period doesn't end until the 7th. That's that Monday of that
The
week,
17th.
possibly. Yep. Yeah, I mean, that would be nice to do and get bills out the first week in December. I know nobody wants to get a tax bill at Christmas time, but our concern here is more about making sure that that bill goes out before the 31st, because there are a lot of people that use the amount on their income tax as a, part of their deductions. And if that's not dated and paid by the end of the year, they're not allowed to do that. So our concern is we have to get that bill out, at least the first half bill. And you don't want the state to force us to do a preliminary bill. We did a preliminary bill 1 year and it was not ideal because you basically have to ignore your new value and base it on last year's value. And with the market changing as much as it did, we don't want to get involved in that. It was a terrible thing.
What do you think you'll know for sure? Because
I'll know for sure as soon as we submit our LA 10 form, which I will do the morning of the 8th after our last day of public disclosure. I feel it'll take a few days to have that set. Once that is set, we're basically in a regular year as if the reval never happened. So that means the state then has to we submit our new growth, which is all done on the gateway. It's all, no one comes out here and looks at that. We submit it. And I feel there'll be no questions whatsoever on that because Joe from the state and I will be working on it next week. So that goes through within a day or two. We're already past that first, selectmen's meeting. As soon as that's over with, all you really need is a 48-hour period to schedule the tax classification hearing, of which another change to the rules is you don't have to post that in the paper anymore. All the state needs to see is that we have complied with the posting regulations for each community. So as long as we've posted it on the agenda, we'd be good to go. I know Mike and I want to work on it so we have something that's, presentable for that meeting, which possibly could, I usually have a little booklet that I have ready for you guys to look at. And I'd like to have that ready for you, so you have it for an entire weekend or a few days, not just here's a day before so you can have that available and look at. That'll take a little bit of time to do. So I'm hoping by having that all wrapped up second week in November, and if possibly we can call up a special meeting just for the tax classification hearing and go from there and be done with it as soon as we can at the end of this month or November.
so the 17th is what we're shooting for then.
I'd say, I don't want to put that in stone now, but it would be great if we could at this point.
Because if it's not the 17th, we're not going to do it Thanksgiving week.
No, absolutely
Yeah, we're
not.
talking December 1st or the 17th.
Right. Yep. And I know that leading up to that classification hearing, we will have everything ready to go for the tax rate. So it's just a matter of the classification hearing hits the night before, we start submitting for the tax rate the next morning. And hope and pray that, 300 communities aren't submitting at the same time. But they know that I've seen over the years that the state likes to push forward with the semi-annual communities. We're not a quarterly billing community. They have more access to cash and finances than, think we're fine, but at this, we are fine. I don't want to put that out there that we're not. But again, our goal is to always have that first half bill out. And there are people that are ready to pay right now, but there's nothing to apply it to. And that would be, and if that is someone's concern, I would call the tax collector's office because they may be allowing a payment based on either the preliminary bill or last year's bill. If someone wants to do that, that is a.
But that's more of a conversation in December.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. And I'm sure we can get that tax rate information ready to go pretty easily.
Yeah, so let's not burden the.
I think
poor
tomorrow,
tax collector.
right, we're gonna have our first meeting tomorrow. Mike is gonna get the department heads together to, everyone that has to do their part to get the tax rate set. And we're hoping, and I can make this statement, I think pretty clearly that it will go down. We're hoping quite a bit, but I don't want to put anything out there yet. But the rule of thumb is when you're looking at an increase in valuations like we had this year, which is historic, there's no doubt about that, the tax rate has to go down. I mean, how far it will go down is yet to be seen. That is going to be when we're all discussing everything and see. I would like it personally to be as low as humanly possible at this point. But we'll see where we can go with that.
Yeah, so the tax rate.
It would definitely help.
The tax rate's based on spending.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This was set last year.
Yep.
You voted town meeting.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's basic division.
Yeah.
You got
The only wiggle room really is with your actual receipts versus your estimated receipts. And again, the state, there is a new thing that they're doing this year. I think I mentioned it to you guys a few weeks back, where on the gateway, they're requiring an explanation now for, which they never did before, for every increase or decrease in your local receipts. I personally think it's something that should have been done forever. And I know that if they see, for example, if you have investment income and all of a sudden you've got, $2 million more in there, they're going to want to know why. And typically we'll do a little blurb and a letter saying, this is why. This year, for the first time, I believe, I haven't looked at it yet, but there's a drop down menu where you've got to fill in what you did and they will question it. But that's their job. They should be questioning it.
And occupancy and meals tax are up based on where the budget came in. So if we have flexibility, I mean, it's not a lot, but I think that there's going to be, I think we're at the running rate is a couple $100,000 above what we budgeted. And that might be a way to, shave 2% off the tax rate.
Right.
We have some flexibility with that.
Definitely. And I didn't put it on this, when we get closer to the proposed or the final assessments, I'll put the overlay on the agenda. Because that's also one of those areas at this point that, this year alone, when we've talked about, increasing the exemption amounts, which would also increase the overlay amounts, that wouldn't be until town meeting of next year. This period for the exemptions will end April 1st of next year.
Michael,
So that wouldn't hit.
You want to just mention what an overlay account is and how it's used?
Overlay account is a set number by the Board of Assessors that we take any exemptions or abatement refunds out of. And that has to, as of 2017, the state changed the way that that's handled into one account. Typically, we have to make sure that fiscal 22, how much do we have in overlay? In case you have abatements that go beyond your fiscal year, for example, an appellate tax for a case where they're questioning the final decision by the Board of Assessors that didn't go their way and they take it to the courts. Any decision that comes from that comes out of the overlay. So you have to make sure that you've got enough in there that you're not running into an overlay deficit. I'll be talking to Cheryl and verifying our totals for, I believe we've got 5 years worth of overlay yet, and get that number to you guys. So we're working off of the total amount for all the accounts and not just looking at it as a 1 year item at this point. And that way, that's another way of bringing the tax rate down. If you don't need 100,000, put in 50,000 because you still might have 200,000 that you're working with in all the other accounts. And I wouldn't be spooked by to have to increase it because we're in a certification. The state does not push for that. You know, I mean, they're still gonna want us to submit the OL1 form with a 5-year average, and they're gonna look at the 5-year average, which does not include, obviously, this year, and make us either put some in if we haven't been putting enough in, but I think we've been perfect on reviewing that and putting in just what we need without ever going into a deficit. But that'll be on the agenda for our next meeting. Any other questions, concerns? Can we go in? We can go in.
We can go in executive session. We do have stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to vote to go into an executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to discuss and sign CL1 forms and to discuss the property tax exemption status for several properties. And we will not return to an open meeting. So once we vote, this meeting is closed. So I would entertain a motion.
I just want to mention that, so Tom is not going to be present in the executive session because we were unable to do it because of Zoom requirements,
Does-
We
correct?
can do executive sessions in
Do
Zoom.
you want to call, Tom?
I'll be happy to call. Should I call your Doug's cell or
Yeah, Doug.
you
Sure.
want to call my cell, Mike, or what?
I don't think I have his number.
You can call my cell.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, so just so that the audience knows before we leave, then Tom is out of town, but he will join us via cell phone for the executive session. And we thank you all for attending. And please, if you have any questions, visit the assessor's office or give us a call.
So we had actually the vote.
So first, a vote to, I guess we can
I'm going to
vote
make a
at the
motion.
same time.
Yeah. I make a motion that for you said.
Oh, okay, so we're a vote to
go into-
end our public hearing and go into executive session.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tom, since you're on Zoom, you need to say aye, Tom Stokes.
Aye.
Tom Stokes.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to repeat your name.
I'm sorry?
Oh, just say aye, Tom Stokes.
I, Tom Stokes, I'm sorry.
Okay, aye, Gary.
Aye, Doug.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.